The cold metal of a Glock pressed against my temple as Deborah Wilson, HOA president, snarled through clenched teeth. "Get off our private road or I'll make you regret it," she hissed, sunlight glinting off the barrel. I froze in my tracks, my hands gripping the steering wheel of my pickup truck. Through my rearview mirror, I could see Mojo, my Capuchin monkey, becoming agitated in his carrier in the back seat. His eyes were fixed on Deborah, and I could hear his warning chirps growing louder. "This is my property, Deborah. This road leads to my ranch. You have no right to block it," I said as calmly as I could, though my heart was pounding against my ribs. Deborah's perfectly highlighted blonde hair didn't move in the Texas breeze, testament to the amount of hairspray she used. Her designer sunglasses couldn't hide the cold calculation in her eyes as she pressed the gun harder against my temple. "Not anymore, Jackson. The HOA voted last night. This access road is now community property, and your little hobby farm doesn't fit our community standards," she smirked. "Chickens, goats, and that filthy monkey of yours? Disgusting. We're developing a luxury subdivision, and your eyesore of a ranch is ruining our property values." I slowly reached to put the truck in park, but Deborah jerked the gun against my head. "Don't move," she barked. That's when it happened. In a blur of brown fur, Mojo somehow managed to squeeze through the small opening in the back window I'd left cracked for air. Before I could process what was happening, he launched himself at Deborah with a screech that would make your blood run cold. Deborah screamed as 20 pounds of angry Capuchin monkey latched onto her designer blouse, his small but powerful hands grabbing at her sunglasses and pulling her professionally colored hair. The gun clattered to the ground as she flailed wildly, spinning in circles trying to dislodge Mojo. "Get it off me! Get it off me!" she shrieked, her composed HOA president persona completely shattered. I jumped out of the truck. "Mojo! Stop!" I commanded, but years of training were no match for his protective instincts. He wasn't hurting her, not really, but his display was terrifying enough. He was baring his teeth, screeching, and pulling her hair while carefully avoiding actually biting her. Two men in polo shirts with the Willow Creek Estates HOA logo, Deborah's backup, I presumed, stood frozen by their golf cart, clearly unprepared for a monkey attack in suburban Texas. I finally managed to grab Mojo, who reluctantly released his grip on Deborah's now ruined blouse and hair. The monkey chittered angrily from my arms, still glaring at Deborah, who was now a disheveled mess, mascara running down her face as she hyperventilated. I kicked the gun away from her and looked her straight in the eyes. "Deborah, you just committed assault with a deadly weapon. That's a felony. And it's all recorded on my dashcam." Her face, already pale from the monkey attack, went completely white. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of her problems. "Nobody threatens me on my own property, and nobody gets away with trying to steal my land. My name is Jackson Cooper, and this is how my rescue monkey Mojo helped me take down the most corrupt HOA in Texas. I never wanted trouble with the Willow Creek Estates HOA. I just wanted to live peacefully on my small ranch that had been in my family for 3 generations. 2 years ago, I left my high-stress job as an environmental lawyer in Houston to return home after my father passed away. The 15-acre property wasn't much by Texas standards, but it was all paid for, with good water rights, decent soil, and enough space for my small herd of rescue animals, including Mojo, who I'd saved from an illegal exotic pet situation during my last big case. The property had always been outside city limits, with our private access road connecting to the main highway. But in the year I'd been gone handling my father's affairs, Willow Creek Estates had sprung up on the adjacent land, a flashy development of McMansions with a strict HOA run by Deborah Wilson, former real estate executive and full-time nightmare. At first, the issues were minor: complaints about my chickens being visible from the road, nasty grams about the rustic, their word, appearance of my barn, and passive-aggressive comments whenever I drove past the guarded community entrance in my mud-splattered pickup. But things escalated 3 months ago when surveyor stakes appeared along my access road. I pulled them up immediately and called the county assessor's office, who confirmed what I already knew: the road was on my property, deeded to my grandfather in 1963. That's when the real harassment began. HOA security vehicles parked at the edge of my property, taking photos. My mail mysteriously disappeared. Someone cut my fence, allowing 3 of my goats to escape, thankfully found unharmed. Each time, I documented everything and filed reports with Sheriff Martinez, who was sympathetic but admitted that these kinds of property disputes were common when developments butted up against old family lands. "They're trying to pressure you to sell, Jackson," he told me during one visit. "Happens all over the county. These developers want to expand, and your ranch is prime real estate now." "I'm not selling," I said firmly. My father's ashes were scattered on this land, by his request. This was more than property to me, it was my heritage. The sheriff sighed. "Just be careful. Deborah Wilson has connections with the county commissioners, the mayor. Her husband plays golf with Judge Reynolds twice a week." I nodded, understanding the implicit warning. This wasn't just about an HOA, this was about money and power. As an environmental lawyer, I'd gone up against powerful interests before. I knew how to fight. But I never expected Deborah to resort to pulling a gun on me. After the monkey attack incident, I drove straight to the sheriff's office with my dashcam footage. Sheriff Martinez watched it with widening eyes, especially the part where Deborah clearly pressed the gun to my head while claiming my access road. "Jesus, Jackson," he muttered. "This is way beyond HOA harassment." "Will you arrest her?" I asked. The sheriff hesitated. "It's not that simple. Her husband." "So Judge Reynolds gets to decide if his golf buddy's wife faces charges for pointing a gun at my head?" I interrupted, anger rising in my voice. "That's not what I'm saying," the sheriff replied, though his expression told me otherwise. "Look, give me some time. I'll talk to the DA. In the meantime, maybe stay with a friend? Just until we sort this out." I knew what "sort this out" meant in a small Texas county where money talked. Nothing would happen to Deborah Wilson. If anything, I'd probably face charges for my dangerous animal attacking her. As if reading my thoughts, the sheriff added, "And Jackson? Keep that monkey contained. They'll use any excuse to come after you now." Back at the ranch, I paced in my kitchen while Mojo watched from his perch on the refrigerator. My phone had already blown up with texts from neighbors who'd heard about the confrontation. Apparently, Deborah was telling everyone I'd trained my attack monkey to assault her when she was simply delivering HOA notices. I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey and called my old law partner, Emma Delgado. "They pulled a gun on you?" Emma's voice rose in disbelief after I recounted the morning's events. "That's felony assault, Jackson." "Sheriff won't do anything," I said, taking a sip of whiskey. "Too many connections." Emma was silent for a moment. "Send me everything you have. The dashcam footage, property deeds, previous complaints, everything. This isn't just an HOA dispute anymore, Jackson. This is criminal. What good will it do? The system here is rigged." "The local system, maybe," Emma replied. "But I still have contacts at the state level. And the Texas Rangers don't give a damn who someone's husband plays golf with." For the first time that day, I felt a spark of hope. Emma had always been the tactical one in our partnership, thinking 3 moves ahead. If anyone could help me navigate this, it was her. "There's something else," Emma added. "I've been hearing rumors about Willow Creek Estates. Their developer, Platinum Properties, has been involved in some shady land deals across the state. This might be bigger than just your access road." After hanging up, I gathered every document I had related to the property, the original deed from 1963, survey maps, tax records, everything, and scanned them to send to Emma. While doing this, I noticed something odd in one of the older survey maps. The property line marking my access road had been altered at some point, but very subtly. Someone had tried to make it appear that the road had always cut through what was now Willow Creek property. A forgery. Crude, but potentially effective if no one bothered to check the original records. I was photographing this discrepancy when headlights swept across my front windows. Multiple vehicles were coming up my driveway. I checked my security cameras, 3 SUVs with the Willow Creek Estates logo, plus a police cruiser I didn't recognize. My heart sank. So that's how it was going to be. I quickly texted Emma, "They're here with police."
Forged property documents. Need help ASAP.
Then I tucked Mojo safely into his travel carrier, grabbed my go bag, an old habit from my environmental activism days when threats were common, and slipped out the back door just as pounding began on the front.
Jackson Cooper. This is the police. We have a warrant for your arrest.
From the shadows of my barn, I watched as they broke down my door.
But I wouldn't be there when they found whatever evidence they were planning to plant. Mojo and I had a different plan, one that started with a visit to an old friend who'd been waiting years for the chance to take down Platinum Properties.
Emily Chen looked exactly the same as she had 5 years ago when we'd worked together on a class action lawsuit against a chemical company polluting groundwater in East Texas. Her small investigative journalism office in Austin was cluttered with files, multiple computer monitors displayed various documents, and conspiracy-style boards with photos and red string covered one wall. "I've been tracking Platinum Properties for 3 years," she said, pinning my property map to one of her boards.
"They're connected to at least 7 suspicious development deals across Texas, all following the same pattern. Forge documents, manipulate local officials, intimidate homeowners?" I suggested. Emily nodded. "Exactly.
But they've been careful working through shell companies, using different HOAs as fronts. It's been nearly impossible to prove the connection. Until now," I said, pointing to the document discrepancy I'd found.
"This is clear evidence of forgery.
And the dashcam footage of Deborah Wilson threatening you with a gun is the cherry on top," Emily grinned.
This could break the whole thing wide open."
For the next week, Mojo and I stayed in Emily's spare room while we built our case.
Emma joined us, bringing her legal expertise and state-level contacts.
We discovered that Platinum Properties was actually a subsidiary of Mercer Developments, owned by Theodore Mercer, who happened to be Deborah Wilson's brother-in-law.
The pattern was clever but consistent.
Mercer would identify rural properties with development potential, establish a flashy subdivision nearby, then use the HOA to harass the neighboring landowners until they sold at below market rates.
In some cases, they'd even manufactured code violations or environmental concerns to force sales.
"They've acquired over 5,000 acres this way," Emily explained, showing us a map dotted with Mercer Developments.
"Conservative estimate of profit? Over $100 million. And no one's connected the dots until now?" I asked. "They're careful. Different company names, different HOAs.
And they have friends in local government," Emily sighed.
"Plus, most people just take the money and go.
You're the first one who's fought back with evidence." Meanwhile, according to my neighbors, my ranch was under constant surveillance by HOA security. An arrest warrant had indeed been issued for assault with a dangerous animal and threatening an HOA official. Deborah had completely flipped the script, claiming I had commanded Mojo to attack her while she was peacefully delivering notices. Sheriff Martinez had called Emma, unofficially, to warn us that Judge Reynolds had personally signed the warrant after hearing Deborah's version of events. The dashcam footage had mysteriously malfunctioned after being entered into evidence. "Convenient," Emma muttered after relaying this information.
"But not surprising. So what's our play?"
I asked, scratching behind Mojo's ears as he sat on my shoulder. "I can't hide forever, and I'm not giving up my ranch."
Emma and Emily exchanged looks.
"We go nuclear," Emma said simply. "State-level investigation, media pressure, and public exposure all at once."
Emily nodded. "I've already spoken to my editor.
We're ready to publish once we have all the pieces in place."
"And I've briefed my contact at the Attorney General's office," Emma added.
"They're very interested in Judge Reynolds' relationship with Theodore Mercer, especially after seeing copies of your dashcam footage." "Which mysteriously malfunctioned," I reminded her.
Emma smiled. "Good thing you had it backing up to cloud storage, isn't it?"
I returned her smile. "Of course I had backups. When you spend years fighting corporate polluters, you learn to cover your bases."
The plan was set. Emily would publish her exposé on Mercer Development's predatory practices, with my case as the centerpiece.
Simultaneously, Emma would file complaints with the state bar against Judge Reynolds and Deborah's husband for abuse of power. And I would return to my ranch openly, publicly daring them to arrest me with the media watching. But first, we needed one more piece of evidence, proof that Deborah Wilson knew the property documents were forged when she threatened me.
I might have a way, I said slowly, an idea forming. But it's risky. And it involves Mojo.
3 days later, I returned to my ranch in broad daylight, accompanied by Emma, Emily, and a cameraman from her newspaper. As expected, HOA security called it in immediately, and within 20 minutes, 3 Willow Creek Estates SUVs came roaring up my driveway, followed by the same police cruiser from the night of the raid. Deborah Wilson stepped out of the lead SUV, looking immaculate in a designer pantsuit, her hair perfectly styled again. If she was surprised to see me standing calmly on my porch with a camera crew, she hid it well.
"Jackson Cooper, you're in violation of a restraining order and there's a warrant for your arrest," she announced loudly, clearly playing to the camera. "Officer, please do your duty."
The uniformed officer stepped forward, looking uncomfortable.
I recognized him as Deputy Rogers, a new hire I'd met only once before.
"Actually," Emma interrupted, stepping forward with legal documents in hand, "the restraining order has been temporarily stayed by a state judge pending review, and we have filed a counter-complaint for false allegations and evidence tampering." Deborah's expression flickered for just a moment before she regained her composure. "This is ridiculous. He commanded his dangerous animal to attack me on community property."
"You mean my private access road, which you were blocking while threatening me with a firearm?"
I countered, nodding to Emily's cameraman who was capturing everything.
"And speaking of property, I'd like to discuss these survey documents."
I held up enlarged copies of both the original survey and the altered version that had been filed with the county recorder's office. "I don't know what you're talking about," Deborah said dismissively, though I caught the flash of panic in her eyes. "That's strange, because your signature is right here on the filing documents," I continued, holding up another paper.
"Submitting forged documents to a government office is a felony in Texas. I wonder if your brother-in-law Theodore Mercer knew you were taking such risks for him?" At the mention of Mercer's name, Deborah's facade cracked.
"You don't know what you're talking about," she hissed, but her voice had lost its confident edge.
"Oh, I think I do," I replied, nodding toward the tree line behind her.
"Just like I know about the meeting you had with him last night at your house. The one where you discussed how to handle the Cooper problem once and for all." Deborah's face drained of color.
"You were spying on me?"
"That's illegal."
I smiled.
"No, but recording someone threatening violence against me on my own property is perfectly legal in Texas." On cue, Emily held up her phone and played an audio recording, Deborah's voice, clear as day, saying, "We need to take care of Cooper permanently. I don't care what it takes.
The property has to be clear for Phase 2.
A male voice, presumably Mercer's, responded, "The documents are in place.
Just keep the pressure on. Everyone has a breaking point." Deborah's expression morphed from shock to fury.
"Where did you get that?"
"You can't." "Mojo is quite the helper," I said casually, gesturing to where my Capuchin sat on the porch railing.
"Especially when equipped with a tiny recording device in his collar.
He spent a very interesting evening in the oak tree outside your dining room window."
"It was a bluff, mostly. Mojo had indeed been in that tree, but the recording actually came from a directional microphone Emily had set up. Still, the implication that my monkey had been spying on her was too much for Deborah. That filthy animal," she shrieked, completely losing her composure. "I knew we should have taken care of it when we had the chance. Just like we should have bulldozed this worthless property the minute your father died instead of playing these stupid legal games." The silence that followed was deafening.
Deputy Rogers stared at Deborah in shock.
Even her HOA security team looked uncomfortable. "Officer Rogers," Emma said quietly into the silence, "I believe you just witnessed a confession to conspiracy, not to mention an admission that the property documents were indeed falsified." The young deputy looked from Deborah to me, then to the camera recording everything. His decision was clearly written on his face. "Mrs. Wilson," he said formally, "I need you to come with me to answer some questions."
"Do you know who my husband is?"
Deborah sputtered as the deputy approached her.
"Do you know who my brother-in-law is?" You're nothing. You can't touch me.
But her threats fell flat as Deputy Rogers calmly read her rights while placing her in handcuffs. The three HOA security guards, seeing which way the wind was blowing, quickly got back into their vehicles and drove away. As Deborah was placed in the police cruiser, still shouting threats, Emily turned to me with a grin. Got it all on camera. This is going to blow the Mercer Development story wide open. Emma nodded in agreement. And with Deborah's confession, we have enough to request a state-level investigation into the false warrant, the forged documents, everything. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders as I watched the police cruiser drive away. Mojo jumped from the railing to my shoulder, chittering happily. Good work, buddy, I said, offering him a grape from my pocket. You saved the ranch. The aftermath was everything we'd hoped for and more. Emily's expose on Mercer Development's predatory practices ran as a front-page series, picked up by national outlets within days. The Texas Attorney General's office launched a full investigation, freezing Mercer's assets and those of his subsidiary companies. Judge Reynolds recused himself from all cases involving Willow Creek Estates after the state bar opened an ethics investigation. Deborah's husband suddenly found his law practice under scrutiny for multiple conflicts of interest. As for Deborah herself, she faced charges for assault with a deadly weapon, filing false police reports, submitting forged documents to a government office, and conspiracy. Her perfectly coiffed mugshot made the rounds on social media, particularly in HOA watchdog groups where she became something of a cautionary tale. The Willow Creek Estates HOA underwent a complete restructuring after most of the board resigned in disgrace. The new leadership, led by a retired judge who'd purchased a home there unaware of the corruption, immediately withdrew all claims to my access road and issued a formal apology. 3 months later, I sat on my porch swing, watching the sunset over my family's land with Mojo dozing in my lap. Emma had joined my legal practice part-time, focusing on helping other rural landowners facing similar pressures from developers. Emily's investigative series had won a state journalism award and sparked legislative interest in reforming HOA regulations. My phone buzzed with a text message from Sheriff Martinez. Just heard Deborah took a plea deal. 5 years probation, $250,000 in fines, and banned from serving on any HOA board for life. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled, scratching gently behind Mojo's ears. Hear that, buddy? Justice served. Mojo yawned and nestled deeper into my lap, completely unfazed by his role in bringing down one of the most corrupt HOA schemes in Texas. To him, it had just been another day protecting his human. I sipped my iced tea, grateful for my small ranch, my rescue animals, and especially for my monkey with a talent for being in the right place at the right time. The no trespassing sign at the entrance to my property now featured a small addition, warning, property protected by attack monkey. It wasn't strictly true Mojo had never actually hurt Deborah, just scared her and messed up her perfect hair. But the legend of the HOA fighting monkey had grown with each retelling, and I wasn't about to correct it. Let the next corrupt HOA president think twice before trying to steal my land. Between my legal knowledge, my investigative journalist friend, and my protective capuchin, we were ready for whatever came next. But somehow, I doubted anyone would be pointing a gun at my head on my own property anytime soon. That's the thing about HOA Karens, they talk tough until a monkey calls their bluff. 6 months after Deborah Wilson's arrest, I received an unexpected visitor. A black SUV with government plates pulled up my driveway, and a tall woman in a crisp suit stepped out. Mr. Cooper? I'm Agent Ramirez with the FBI's Public Corruption Unit, she said, showing me her credentials. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about Mercer Developments and their connection to local officials. I invited her in, and over coffee, she explained that what had started as a local corruption case had expanded into a multi-state federal investigation. Theodore Mercer's company had apparently used the same tactics in Arizona, Oklahoma, and Florida, always working through local HOAs to pressure landowners and manipulate property records. Your case broke it open, Agent Ramirez explained. Once Emily Chen's story hit the national press, we started getting calls from landowners across the country with similar experiences. Happy to help, I said. But I'm just a small-town environmental lawyer who wanted to keep his family ranch. Agent Ramirez smiled. And the monkey? We've heard quite a lot about your unusual security system.
On cue, Mojo appeared in the doorway, eyeing the stranger curiously. I laughed. Don't believe everything you hear. Mojo just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
As Agent Ramirez left with copies of my evidence for the federal case, I thought about how one small act of resistance, refusing to be intimidated by Deborah's gun, had snowballed into something much bigger than I ever imagined. The HOA that had tried to bully me off my land was now under state oversight. The development company that had orchestrated the scheme was facing federal charges. And there was talk of new legislation to protect rural landowners from predatory HOA practices. They were even calling it the Cooper Act in early drafts. All because a corrupt HOA Karen had used a gun to block my ranch road, never expecting that my monkey would attack her on the spot or that I would fight back with everything I had. Sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places. In my case, it came from 20 pounds of protective capuchin with a dislike for people who threaten his human. As the sun set over my family's land, safe at last from those who would steal it, I raised my glass in a toast to Mojo, the unlikely hero who had helped me save not just my ranch, but potentially countless others across the country. Not bad for a rescue monkey with an attitude problem.